Today, we're going to explore a pretty wild secret to wealth, one that pretty much challenges everything you've ever been taught about money. It's called the law of circulation, and it suggests that the key to getting more is actually giving more.
So let's just kick things off with a pretty bold statement, straight from the source material. Everything you've been taught about money is wrong. I mean, we're told to save, to accumulate, to guard what we have with a clenched fist. But what if that conventional wisdom is the very thing that's holding you back?
And that brings us to our first big idea, the great wealth lie. This is the story we're all fed, right? A story built on this fundamental idea that there's just not enough to go around, a culture of scarcity.
This really gets to the heart of it. The lie is the clenched fist, that mindset of hoarding, of taking, of fear. The truth, according to this law of circulation, is the complete opposite. It's the open hand, a mindset of flow, of generosity, and ultimately of abundance.
So, if hoarding is the lie, what's the truth? Well, that brings us right to the main event, the law of circulation. This is the principle that they say truly governs how wealth really works.
Here's the key takeaway. The law of circulation says wealth isn't some static pile of gold you sit on. No, it's a current. It's a river. And think about it. When you dam up a river, the water becomes stagnant, kind of gross. But when you let it flow, it stays fresh, it stays vital, and it actually multiplies downstream.
You know, a great way to think about this is to picture a farmer. A farmer who hoards all his seeds in the barn is technically rich in seeds, but he's never going to see a harvest, right? The wise farmer knows he has to lose his seeds by sowing them into the ground, because that act of giving away is the only thing that activates nature's power of multiplication. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds like a nice philosophical idea, but is there any real-world proof? Does this actually work? Well, let's take a look at the story of the world's very first billionaire. Check this out. John D. Rockefeller, from his very first job, we're talking his first paycheck, made it a non-negotiable habit to give away 10% of everything he earned. Not after he became rich, from the absolute beginning. This wasn't some PR stunt, it was a core principle for his entire life.
And this quote, man, this really gets inside his head. He didn't see it as a loss. He believed that by letting 10% flow out, he was making the other 90% more powerful, more potent. He was creating a space, like a vacuum, that opportunity and abundance would just naturally rush in to fill. It wasn't just faith for him, it was a strategy.
And the result? Well, it speaks for itself. This practice of consistent, principled giving was a key part of the financial engine that made him the wealthiest person on the entire planet. He basically proved that an open hand could hold way, way more than a clenched fist ever could. Okay, so we've seen the principle, we've seen the proof. But how do we actually apply this? Right? How do we make that shift from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance and flow?
The scarcity mindset is pretty simple. It's driven by one fundamental question over and over again. What can I get? It's all about taking, extracting value from every person, every situation. It's a mindset that's always in deficit. But this circulation mindset, it just flips that script completely. It asks a totally different and way more powerful question. What can I give? How can I add more value here? How can I contribute? How can I solve a problem for somebody else? The goal here is to make this mental shift from being a drain to being a fountain. A drain only takes things in, but a fountain is constantly giving out. And because of that constant outflow, it becomes a source of life that just naturally draws people to it. The goal is to become a fountain of value. So where can you start applying this? Let's break it down into 3 key areas. First up, money. Small, consistent acts of giving, like tipping a little extra, actually retrain your brain to operate from a place of abundance, not lack. Second, knowledge. Instead of hoarding your expertise, share it. This builds incredible trust and establishes you as an authority people want to be around. And finally, appreciation. Praise and gratitude are literally unlimited resources that create goodwill and multiply every single time you give them away.
All right, theory is one thing, but practice is where the magic happens. So to make this super real for you, here is a simple challenge to put the law of circulation into action for the next 7 days. This is your roadmap. Each day, just focus on one intentional act of giving, with zero expectation of getting anything back. Buy someone a coffee, share a useful article you found, compliment someone on their work, make an introduction between two people. The goal here isn't to change the world in a week, but to change your mindset, to physically move from a feeling of lacking to a feeling of flowing.
And this quote is the ultimate takeaway. The law of circulation isn't some trick to get what you want. It's a principle to change who you are. By becoming a generous, value-driven source, a fountain, you naturally start to attract the very abundance you're putting out into the world. So the final question really isn't, how can I get more? It's, how can I become more?